A cryptocurrency exchange firm has been slapped with a fine of almost $177 million, the largest ever penalty by Canada's Financial Intelligence Agency after failing to flag more than 1,000 transactions with suspected links to criminal activity. Let's get more on this from Adam Garetson. He is the leader of the Blockchain and Digital Assets Group and a partner at Gowling WLG. Adam, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You were on a few months ago, and that was the largest fine then. How much was that, and how does this compare, and why is it so big, this fine?
Yeah, thanks. So the size of this fine definitely sends a strong signal from Canadian regulators that financial service providers, including those in the virtual currency space, have serious AML obligations, and failure to comply can result in very large penalties. AML regulators in Canada are serious about cracking down on non-compliance and protecting Canadians. In this circumstance, the volume of non-compliance alleged was huge. They alleged direct links to criminal activity and flows of funds to sanctioned countries on a regular basis. So while this entity was registered with AML regulators in Canada, they were alleged to be in material non-compliance that was of scope and magnitude beyond the previous fine that was levied against KuCoin.
Do we know the total volume that was moved in those, I think it was 1,500 transactions? Do we know? It was above 10,000 each transaction, but I'm guessing it was in the millions maybe?
Yeah, that's right. So when you compare the nature of the allegations between KuCoin and Cryptomus, when you look at the allegations in the KuCoin example, there was ultimately one allegation which constituted what's called a serious violation, which had 33 instances of alleged non-reporting. Here, this allegation was ultimately two serious violations, but the instances of it were 8,600. So you can see the difference between kind of the 33 instances on the one hand versus the 8,600 on the other.
And is this the tip of the iceberg? Is more of it getting through and nobody's catching it, or was this some good hard work by the government?
Yeah, this is good hard work by the government from my perspective. I think what we're seeing is a broader trend towards strengthening AML in Canada. So we see multiple pieces of legislation that are happening at the federal level that are designed to strengthen Canada's AML regulatory regime. We also are aware that the international standard-setting body FATF, or the Financial Action Task Force, is reviewing countries all over the world, including Canada right now. So from my perspective, this is FINTRAC leveling up, ramping up its fines, and issuing fines more in line with other jurisdictions around the world, including in the US, where fines can frequently range in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
And now, I mean, it sounds like these transactions were related to criminal activity and criminal cartels and the like. Should people who are just involved in this, should they be worried about their money in it?
So people who are investing in cryptocurrency should do their education and make sure that they're working with compliant Canadian platforms. That would be my first recommendation, and certainly speaking to legal counsel as well, if you're curious about getting more information on the regulatory framework. So generally speaking, the Canadian operating environment has a number of registered entities that are compliant with both Canadian AML and FINTRAC laws, as well as compliant with Canadian securities laws. Here we've seen two instances now of material non-compliance with entities that do not have a significant presence in Canada. So when I talk about retail investors and looking at cryptocurrency, one of the big pieces is education, and certainly working with a registered Canadian platform.
And that I guess is extremely important. Is any of this guaranteed? Any of your money protected at all? I mean, obviously the up and downs of the market, but when you put the money in, is there any guarantee that your money is protected?
So there's no guarantees that your money is going to be protected. What Canada does and what other international jurisdictions do is work on a cooperative basis to share information and track fines, penalties, and sanctions around the world. So I expect that Canadian regulators will be looking to work with their international partners as we progressively work towards bringing a more regulated environment in the digital asset sector into the market. And that means effectively having more entities that are operating on a regulated and compliant basis, operating together and working together with regulators to foster a compliant environment.
And now you said Canada stepped up on this one. Did it step up from a good position, or is there a lot more room for improvement?
I think we're seeing a positive trend from the Canadian FINTRAC regulators in the AML space. So this is a trajectory of enforcement and compliance, which I think is overall a positive step for Canada.
And with it, sorry, and was Cryptomus are they from outside the country or inside? And what are the odds the fine will ever get paid?
So they did have a domestic footprint, but it was very small. And the majority of their operations, I understand from the releases from FinTrack, were being conducted from offshore. The fines and sanctions are going to now be effectively chased by Canadian regulators. And so, like I said, they're going to be relying on cooperation with their international partners to track it down.
And what country? Do you know what country they were in? They were based out of, and is it a hotbed for this?
Yeah, so the countries that were listed were, I believe, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan primarily in the FinTrack release. So Canadian authorities will have to work with their international partners in order to track it down.
Okay, Adam, thank you very much for joining us today and talking about this. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Adam Garetson is leader of the Blockchain and Digital Assets Group at Gowling WLG.